We reviewed We reviewed student attendance and chose our highest flyer students that repeatedly showed that they were absent from school. And what Downey's partnership helped our team do was take a look at, like, what can we do to support school attendance? And the partnership helped us recruit people, because that's the biggest thing that we saw is we needed help, that our people, boots on the ground in the school, needed support within the community. So our Success Mentor program was all about recruiting mentors from the community. We pulled people from faith-based organizations, local law enforcement agencies, and many other community members. And we worked together to create requirements of mentors and commitments that we needed of them. And we hosted a really big kickoff for our mentors to come in to meet our students face to face. And from that point forward, the mentors were just committed to supporting a Carver Eagle. And this looked different in many different ways depending on the student's needs. They met face-to-face once a month. They would do a written correspondence where they would drop off a letter. They would make a family connection, a phone call, a visit. And really the whole point was for our Carver students to feel that they had someone, not just the teachers they saw every day, but a true connection to the community. And this just really made students have that sense of belonging. This lasted for several months in our first year. And at the end of that year, we saw every single student increase in some way their attendance percentage for the year. And so this is something that Downey's partnership helped us start, but we have continued to build this network of mentors. And of course, COVID threw a kink in things, but we're building back up those mentors and are really excited to this year. We've just kicked our program off and we're supporting over 13 of our highest absences for students. And we're excited to see what our community partners will help us accomplish this year.
Thank you, Kristen. This is Viola Gray. I am the Ready Communities Coordinator at Down East Partnership for Children. Excited to be here on today. Pastor Gary Lee and I will now share with you around family engagement lesson number 2. We found that building relationships between the school and community partners is really critical to the success of these school teams that you've heard Christian and Patty talk about. All the work that we do in partnership with schools and communities is predicated upon building and sustaining relationships. Our Ready Schools work and our Ready Communities work is really interwoven and works hand in hand in building relationships. Ready Communities, everyone, is all about outreach and leadership development. It involves engaging a network of community partners and resources around our 5 schools of work. We target community partners representing the faith, as you've heard them say, the civic, the business, and certainly other groups. I have the distinct pleasure today of introducing one such faith partner, Pastor Gary Lee, who will share with us what it takes to build a relationship with a school as a faith partner. Pastor Lee. You're muted, Pastor Lee.
Thank you all. We learned that building relationships between the community and schools requires front-loading of the work before partners are connected to the social school teams. As a faith partner with one of our schools in Middlesex, I would say it takes time, it takes patience, it takes a sense of culture of the school. And not only that, it takes the community and the willingness to partner with all those to connect. Relationships must be cultivated between the prospective community partners and existing partners. DEPC has done such a great job of helping us to facilitate and sustain these connections.
Next slide, please. The School Community Team Handbook is used as a recruitment tool and strategy to bring people to the table to really have some authentic conversations about the importance of the work and their respective roles. The handbook can be used as a guide to provide transparent and clear expectations for all the stakeholders, and also provides guidelines and benefits for the families, the schools, and community. The first step is to contact the principal to foster a safe space on relevant school teams to really cultivate the relationship between the school and community partners. As you've heard, DEPC facilitates this connection. Pastor Lee.
We've also found that where partners feel valued, they also take the initiative to be the drivers of the work. Community members feel comfortable to take part in decision-making that lends itself to concrete action steps.
So one of the challenges that we've learned in this work is that community partners may not necessarily be able to participate in scheduled school meetings. A solution that we have found in our two-county area is the creation of a level 1 participation and a level 2 engagement for our community partners. Level 1 are those partners who can attend monthly or schedule meetings. Level 2 are those partners who can provide support and resources. However, they are not flexible enough to attend the scheduled meetings. Next slide, please. And next slide, please. One of the examples of our schools of work is Coker Wimberley Elementary School. The principal asked one of our DEPC team members to serve on the school improvement team as a way to give feedback, provide resources, etc., for the needs of that individual school. The principal then articulated a need to the DEPC team member and asked for assistance in recruiting and engaging faith-based community partners to really support the school with reading and social and emotional resources. So our DEPC team member then shared this need with our local faith-based partners in our network, some of which we were amazed were alumni of that very elementary school. So spearheaded by the school improvement team chair, who happens to be a graduate of the DEPC Community Fellows Leadership Program, the school leadership team met to really determine a menu of options for these brand new faith-based partners and volunteers. What happened? The principal coordinated a meet and greet to introduce this menu of options to these new partners. Based on those options, faith partners self-selected and will now serve as lunch and reading buddies, tutors, mentors for the children at risk. One volunteer, one faith partner even adopted an entire class of kindergartners. So what we've learned is that faith-based partners can be alumni from that very school who really appreciate it when they're asked to be involved in the success of their alma mater. Deborah.
Next slide, please. So why do we want to invest in early literacy? Why do we want to invest in our mission of every child reading on grade level and being a successful learner by the end of 3rd grade? Have you studied the impact of poverty? Poverty can do so many things that we don't think about. Poverty can take away resources for reading in the home. Poverty can cause you to be less exposed to language because maybe you don't have a car or even a city bus if you're very rural to get to the library. Maybe you don't have a parent who had the opportunity to graduate because they were impacted by poverty themselves. So you're read to on a less regular basis. Those, you know, I still refer back to Maslow's hierarchy of needs: security, food, knowing you have a safe place to stay, knowing your health is taken care of. If those needs aren't met consistently, then you're exposed to high levels of stress. And stress impacts many things, including brain development. So that is why we want to invest in this area, because I showed you that slide earlier that talked about the poverty in the Twin Counties. 90% of our student body is designated as economically distressed. In addition, the reason you want to invest in this is because research shows when children are reading on grade level by the end of 3rd grade, they are much more likely to be academically successful. If they're not reading on grade level, they're more likely to fall behind in school. And I had the privilege in a former career of working with a high school for a long time. My children that were in 9th grade, who still were not on grade level in reading, many times chose to drop out of school unless they were given a very tight circle of support, mentoring, and lots of support at home. So it is really critical that we give our children the tools and resources they need, beginning at birth, and then build upon it, so that by the time they get to 3rd grade, they are proficient in reading. Next slide. Okay, Viola.
Patty's going to jump right in,
Okay,
Deborah.
thank you.
There we go. I have talked a lot about, and Viola, about ready schools and ready communities and bringing people to the schools and wrapping that school around support. However, since I said earlier, we believe that early learning and successful learning begins at birth. We have several programs that support both learning and literacy. And you see 3 on the screen. One of those is the family, well, I call it the Family First Hotline, but what it really is a resource where families can either call in or visit, and they get referrals for whatever their different questions are. We've even had folks call in and ask, like, where can I find milk or for my baby? And our Family First counselors try to help with that. We also are a Smart Start group, and we work with scholarships for childcare for parents. Now, one of our requirements is that parents should work 30 hours per week, or they are enrolled in school full time, and we ask for documentation of this. But this allows them to get their children into quality childcare. And we also are a North Carolina pre-K Smart Start group. So we work and serve 4-year-olds that are at risk. And 4 others are Incredible Years, which many of you probably heard about. Triple P, our Circle of Parents group, meets to support parents with children with special needs. And we also have play groups. Next slide, please. This goes to Viola.
Thank you, Patty. We believe that summer feeding, summer learning is one of our strongest supports of literacy and health during out of school time. In addition to the school sites that offer summer feeding, Down East Partnership for Children partners with summer food sponsors to recruit faith-based and community groups to become community-based summer feeding and summer learning sites. We provide technical assistance through a series of 3 summer feeding, summer learning support groups, which build the capacity of the sites to not only feed kids during out of school time, but just as importantly, provide summer learning resources such as the Summer Learning Toolkit from the North Carolina Early Childhood Foundation and the Department of Public Instructions. Our agency promotes summer learning through various social media channels, newspapers, websites, community groups, radio, etc., throughout the entire summer from June to August. Information is also shared at our DEPC committee meetings and with local partners that share it on their individual networks as well. We have been blessed that through the generosity of Cummins Engine Plant in Rocky Mount, we have been awarded annual funds to provide what we call summer fun buckets for summer learning in at least 10 of our community-based sites. These sites love this resource. What's in a fun bucket, you ask? The fun bucket includes resources to support health, literacy, and active play. And we also partner with the library and many other summer camps in the 2-county area to share resources and information to make sure that kids are not only just fed, but they are learning during that out of school time. Our indoor play space in our Discovery Park, as well as our community gardens, really promote appropriate active play as well and serve as educational tools in training parents and early education professionals throughout the region. Deborah.
Next slide, please. So in the beginning, I talked a little bit about when I was having trouble muting and unmuting myself. about how important engagement is for us. And part of the way that we make sure that we stay connected and have that continuing engagement is through standing committees and networks that we help build. Some of them we began, some of them we actually participate in with other partnerships that have the same focus as Down East Partnership for Children. So you can read those committees for yourself. I'll not go through them. I would like to say, however, that what we try very hard to do is reach out to our parents and our school volunteers and our teachers and our business partners and the different foundations that fund us, and invite them to be represented on these different committees. Transition alignment focuses on exactly what I said earlier, helping children that are 4 get ready to go into kindergarten when they're 5. Healthy Kids Collaborative supports those things we talked about: having food, having security, having access to medical resources. Viola, with her outreach, has a Latino Hispanic outreach committee that provides an avenue for the Latino Hispanic community to come together and to share their concerns and their needs for their children and their families. And all of these committees do that. Our networks, we have a faith-based network that is very strong. It provides immense support to the summer feeding, summer learning initiative, but it also continuously opens their doors for anything that DEPC expresses as a need: tutoring for children, mentoring for children, participating in health initiatives. They're great. And then we have a health network that includes the local hospitals, health clinics. It's an honor to be associated with all of these people. Community leadership development, Viola talked a little bit about that. Viola, would you speak to that, please?
Yes, we've been blessed that we have a network of community leaders. We have a leadership development program called Community Fellows that was implemented in 1995 with a vision of connecting with more members of the community who have concerned about ensuring that there was adequate childcare in our 2-county area. This leadership development program is awesome. It's 12 weeks, and it builds the capacity of leaders across the spectrum to be able to connect more children and families to health, early care, and educational services. These leaders have been leaders that have participated on our committees, town managers, childcare providers, the average everyday citizen who says, I want to actually get drugs off my street. It helps build their leadership skills to be able to bring about change in their own communities. Awesome program.
Okay, next slide, please. So
and Miss Deborah, Pastor
Yeah.
Lee is going to jump right in.
Okay,
In summary, I would say in summary, Pastor Lee
yes, we'll close
is
out with
connected.
this.
Pastor Lee is connected to Middlesex Elementary School as a long-term faith partner, doing some awesome work out in Middlesex. So Pastor Lee, will you share what a supportive community looks like and why it's so important in building relationships with schools, with participants on our attendees today, and with communities? Pastor Lee.
Thank you again. I'll be glad to. From my perspective, it's nothing like support from our community partners. Over the years, we learned that a supportive community will do these things here. You value true partnerships. We found out that true partnerships are intentional in listening to the partner's needs and what will work out best for them. There will be a trust to sustain relationships that create success. And then not only that, a supportive community will do the work in collaboration and ensure work is data-driven. That is so important. When there's unified collaboration in the community, they are likely to be shift and adapt to as needed to meet current climate needs, to establish longevity, dependability, and not only that, confidence.
Thank you, Pastor Lee. We're going to give it back to Kristen Miller. We've heard time and time again in meetings that we were in North Carolina. Whoops, not that one. Go back up one, please. Thank you. We're going to give it to Kristen Miller to talk about how we have been able to connect with schools and what the importance is. We really have not struggled a lot to connect with schools. Maybe it's trust, maybe it's our longevity in the two districts. But Kristen, can you share how and why you think this relationship's important?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, Patty. Um, I just want to echo like community connections are so important in order for a school to be successful. And, you know, educators are tasked with meeting the needs of students, and that goes beyond academic achievement. Obviously, academics is how we are judged as a school, but we know that we're meeting needs beyond academics. We rely on those community partners to help us cover all of the areas that students need support in, whether that looks like mentoring for our Success Mentor program. We have folks that really help us provide clothes for our clothes closet, providing food for students over the weekends. Down East Partnership has been really awesome in providing us resources, people on the ground coming in to lead clubs, to bring hands-on experiences to our classrooms. These are experiences that our kids would never get if it wasn't for these community partnerships. Because as you know, as a public school, Title I funds run low. So Down East Partnership and our community organizations really help us to find the resources, to find grants, to bring resources, to bring experiences to our kids, because that's what it's all about. We have to have these connections with these community partners, and that all starts with that, what we talked about, that open line of communication, just joining together with a common goal to do what we need to do for kids and talking about what that looks like. And Down East Partnership and our other community organizations have just been really great at sitting down, listening, and truly asking, what do you need? What do your kids need? And then having that honest communication of, you know, we're struggling with this and we need your support. So taking that time to get outside of the four walls of the building is hard sometimes, but we have to have it. We have to have local organizations supporting us to make sure our school community has what we need, because those connections, they're meeting the academic needs, but also the emotional needs of our students, but also their families. And so we really approach this by the whole child, and we really focus on the resources that we can provide, infusing the academics in everything that we do. Down East Partnership brings literacy, they bring taste tests, they focus on health, and just also empowering and encouraging parents to be their child's first advocate and teacher. And teachers do this every day. The school building level administrators do this every day, but it's really nice for parents to feel the community coming around them, not just the school. And so a lot of times it's hard for schools to make these connections, especially in our rural Title I community, but making these connections is vital. So I urge you to reach out to your community partners, invite them into your school, invite them to meet with your staff, and really talk about what your kids need to be successful.
Thank you, Kristen. The next slide, and I'm going to let Deborah close us out.
So we thank you very much for your participation today. We know that y'all are just like us, and we are all together in building dreams for our children. You can learn more about us if you want to use the QR code that we have, or you can go to depc.org. And next slide, please. We're celebrating 30 years this year, and we're thrilled, and we're going to have a family fun day that will be for all our families and children, the entire community. North Carolina Wesleyan University is going to host that for us, and we can't wait. So thank you for being with us today and listening. And we hope to learn from you as well.
Thanks so much, Deborah. Before we transition to the story sharing from Regina, there were some questions that came in that were really specific to some things that you all were speaking about. And so I do want to ask those very quickly, and then I will pitch it over to Trish. One question is that there's some curiosity about if the families who were participating with the mentors, if there were any families that were hesitant to working with mentors and how that was addressed.
Yes, ma'am. So at first, because it was new, we had a lot of questions, and there was a little bit of not pushback, but hesitancy. So families just, what we did is we had a team, the attendance team and our community team. We divvied up the kids that we were really trying to target and support, and we made personal phone calls. This is what this is all about. This is why we are doing this. We focused on what the mentor's role would be, what that would look like for their student, what that would look like for their family. And once we explained and told them what the whole purpose of the program is and what that would look like, parents kind of let their guard down and they understood what our goal was. So it was nothing that just a conversation couldn't fix. And we have seen now that students are really engaged and really enjoy their mentors every year. When we reach out to a new family, they've already kind of heard about it and aren't quite as hesitant.
That's awesome. Thanks, Kristen. That really speaks to the tight partnership that you have as well, with the provider, that tight connection between school and provider and what that can do to be supportive for that family engagement component. So thank you for that. Another question that came through about school community teams, and if those school community teams work in partnership with parent-teacher organizations such as PTOs or PTAs.
We do make a lot of connections. So those school community teams can involve parents. It involves community members who don't really have a specific tie to the school. We don't turn anyone away, that's for sure, because we want the support in a lot of areas. So yes, we work with other organizations, and that team is just like a sounding board. We look at the data, we talk about what we need, and we brainstorm how to get what we need and how to support our students.
Awesome. Thanks, Kristen. And one more, I think this one goes to Viola because it came up when you were referring to the summer buckets. Viola, can you share just a little bit more about what is a summer bucket? What is in it and what is that? What is that program?
And I smile when I think about it because when we say summer fun bucket, we want learning to be fun for the kids. And so these summer fun buckets are $1,000 monies that we order materials around literacy, around physical activity, around active play, around arts, around crafts for the kids from the kindergarten through across the kindergarten divide. So teachers incorporate that into their daily activities. And we actually contract with teachers through a memorandum of understanding wherein each day they list what they are going to do and how they're going to use these particular resources to help kids learn and read and improve their learning and reading skills during the summer. So it's a fun bucket of awesome materials provided to each of the sites.
I love that. Thank you so much. Yeah, go ahead, Patty. I think you unmuted yourself. Were you going to add something?
I was just going to tell you, someone texted me and said they love our accents. We don't think we have accents.
That's right. Thank you for that. Love that.
Well,
yeah, go
can
ahead.
I add
Go ahead,
one
Deborah.
thing about the summer learning buckets?
Of course.
Viola referenced the memorandum of understanding we have with teachers, but one of the things I want to stress is that those teachers, most of them are volunteers. They are teachers who are parents first, or they might be a member of one of the faith-based network partners that we have. And when this initiative began in 2015, we had, I think, 8 participants, and it has, as you saw in those statistics shared earlier, it has greatly grown. And it is due to our faith-based network, Retired Teachers Association, the elementary schools, and the child care centers. And they just all joined together, and Cummins and United Way, our local United Way, have both supported us financially in being able to continue that work now since 2015. So,
And if I may, Deborah, Pastor Gary Lee, if you would be so kind as to take 1 minute and talk about the summer feeding program that you orchestrated through your church. And this is the 2nd year. Now, remember, Pastor Lee also serves on the school community team at Middlesex, and he's brought 4 other pastors to partner with Middlesex. But very quickly, Pastor, plug the summer feeding at your church.
Thank you so much. We thank you for the initiative. This has been a great blessing to us in our community. We serve over 35 to 40 kids every year for the last 2 years. And the fun buckets that we received as a recipient the last 2 years have really resonated, been a blessing to us. We have so many kids who are underserved in our community. who don't have food, who don't have an opportunity to grow during the summer. And because of the initiative of DEPC bringing this to our community, we've been able to enhance our grade level learning and concepts even in our schools. We got a report from our school this year in the last 3 months stating how those kids who came to the camp have increased their scores from being a part of this initiative. So we're so excited about doing this every summer and how it's been a great asset to our community.
I think that really speaks to the close partnerships. Like that's how you get to that end result that you just mentioned, Pastor Lee. And so I really appreciate all of your voices in that story sharing of how you work together, since this particular session is about those relationships and how everybody plays a big, important part of getting to that outcome, which is at the end of the day, supporting children. So now we're going to transition to United Way Regina, so they can share their story. They have some remarkable work happening in Canada. So I'm going to pitch it to Trish. If we could go back to the slides, that would be great. And we will have a little bit of time for some large group discussion. So go ahead and take it away, Trish. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We are coming to you from Regina, Saskatchewan, up in Canada. Myself and Sandy here beside me. I just want to acknowledge as well that we are situated on Treaty 4 territory here at United Way Regina. And I want to be mindful of everybody's time. So we're going to give a little bit of an overview of the work that we are doing here with the Campaign for Grade Level Reading commitment. And really what I'm going to share with you today is some of the successes that we've had with some of the programs and initiatives that we have implemented. And at the foundation of all of that, it really comes down to a very strong partnership with both of our school divisions and others that are working in similar space and making sure that we are all moving in that same direction and that we have common goals, which of course is to ensure that kids have the best chance to succeed and grow. So when I joined the team in September of 2019, we were just a few weeks away from signing the MOU to become the second Canadian city to join the Campaign for Grade Level Reading Network. And then soon after that, I began with the development of an initial 3-year investment plan that would focus on 12 community schools here in Regina. The 3-year plan was really a way for us to be able to begin to roll out those programs and initiatives and begin to see some of the data coming in and have some year-over-year results. But not too much time that we didn't have the ability to go back and make changes as needed. And so we began actually in the space of early childhood education in 2015 by piloting some summer success camps here within the city. And then we also began in 2018 to develop classroom libraries. And so the plan for our Campaign for Grade Level Reading commitment really began to roll out and provide a full complement of programs and initiatives because United Way Regina strongly believes that education provides a pathway out of poverty. And so as we have become more in the collective impact area of work, this plan that I'm going to share with you is our role in terms of our commitment and the investment that we wanted to make for low-income students here in our city. So this continuum of supports just speaks to those areas of school readiness and chronic absence, as well as the summer learning loss. But we also felt that another pillar was needed for us, and that was the importance of improving access to books for kids, and particularly helping to build at-home libraries so that kids could engage in reading more often. Next slide, please. So how the schools were chosen was utilizing Saskatchewan Ministry of Education data. And the data that is used is called EYE, which is the Early Years Evaluation. And so once the plan was beginning development, I took a look at the EYE data by neighborhood to review the areas where there was the most significant achievement gaps, and then pinpointed to the schools within those neighborhoods. Once the plan was created and I had a full build out and overview of what we were proposing, I met with both directors of education here for our two local school divisions, Regina Public Schools and Regina Catholic Schools. And I presented the plan to both directors. And once I had their input and approval, I then moved on to their leadership teams and met with all of them. We really wanted to ensure that we had the input from our school divisions to ensure that we were in fact targeting those schools that had the most significant achievement gaps and the highest level of complex needs. And we wanted to make sure that the programs and initiatives that we were proposing, that the schools felt were the right programs and initiatives, and that they felt that it was manageable from their principals and teachers' perspective, because we did ask for reporting and we wanted to be able to gather the data to ensure that we were able to demonstrate that the work we were doing was in fact having an impact on the achievement levels. And so we wanted to make sure that we were not asking too much of our schools. It's very much been a mutual partnership right from the get-go. And all levels of the school division are included on all communications, so that we have every level engaged in the work, and everyone is a part of the communication so that it is clear and documented. We also have memorandum of understanding with both of our school divisions. It is updated and renewed annually to really outline the commitment from United Way Regina and to document the reporting that we are requesting. Next slide. So the EYE, which is Early Years Evaluation, there are two components to the EYE. One is the direct assessment, and the other is the teacher assessment. So the EYE direct assessment is an individual play-based assessment to measure a child's developmental needs and pre-literacy skills. Information on each child's strengths or areas for further development is gathered to help schools and families support a positive transition into school. The EYE Teachers Assessment is done early in the kindergarten year and provides immediate reporting and specific interventions to target areas of concern in early child development domains. This allows our educators to act quickly to ensure the right supports and interventions are in place for each child. And then children are again assessed at the end of the school year before moving on to grade 1 in the fall. The EYE Teachers Assessment evaluates 5 key markers of early child development that are closely linked to kindergarten readiness and emergent literacy skills. Next slide. So this just provides kind of a snapshot in terms of what we were proposing, and really what it was meant to do was to expand on the work that we had started years ago and then sustain that work and grow year over year. So we felt from a staffing capacity as well as a funding capacity that if we implemented 4 schools a year, that would give us a really good sample size in terms of the data, and it would be more manageable for us on a capacity level. So we rolled out all programs and initiatives in our year 1 schools, all 4 year 1 schools. Then in year 2, we sustained those 4 and then added 4 more schools. And then in year 3, we sustained the first 8, and then we rolled out our last 4 schools in year 3. So we officially wrapped up year 3 of our campaign for grade level reading plan in June of 2023. And now in 2024, this is a sustainable year. What we are doing is we are reviewing the data, we are meeting with the school divisions again, we are getting feedback from teachers and schools to ensure that we are continuing to offer programs and initiatives that are addressing the core needs within these schools. Next slide. So when the plan was developed, we were already aware of the achievement gap that existed for low-income students in our city. However, we wanted to go back to that and gain a baseline data because we didn't know what was lurking around the corner for us in our launch year that we were planning to roll out our plan. So pre-COVID data for us, our citywide average showed school readiness, or EYE. 57% of students were deemed ready for school, and 74% of students were reading at grade 3 reading level. Our campaign for grade level reading schools, those 12 schools that we had identified, in comparison to our citywide average, 44% of students were deemed ready for school and 42% were reading at grade level. Next slide. So in the fall of 2020, we officially kicked off our 3-year commitment with our first 4 schools and rolled out the full lineup of programs and initiatives to target each of our focus areas. And with the launch of year 1, it came at a time that was critical as schools were just opening up after 6 months of school closures. And what we saw in our priority community schools was that that achievement gap had widened even further. Next slide. So citywide average in the fall of 2020 was showing 63% of students were deemed ready to learn, and 48% were reading at grade level. In our campaign for grade level reading schools, the achievement gap had dropped to 26% were ready for school and 26% were reading at grade level. Because of the partnership that we have developed with our school divisions, we have actually been able to gather data that has not been shared otherwise. So the Ministry of Education data is released each year, and both of our school divisions provide an annual report. However, we have not been able to gather data from school-specific levels. And so that speaks to the trust and the mutual respect that we have for our school divisions and the trust that they have in us. But what we have done as part of our memorandum of understanding is that we have agreed to our school divisions to not single out any particular school division or any particular school. So we have 8 Regina Public campaign for grade level reading schools, and we have 4 Regina Catholic campaign for grade level reading schools, simply because public is our much larger division. And so the data that you are seeing is overall across those 12 schools in both divisions. Next slide, please. Heading into year 2 of our campaign for grade level reading plan, after another school year of disruptions and school closures, we unfortunately saw that achievement gap widen even further than it had the year before. So percentage of students in our 12 schools had dropped to 22% were ready for school versus the 57% citywide average. And just 25% of our students in those 12 schools were reading at grade level versus the 52% for citywide. So seeing a drop in overall in all schools, but definitely significant difference between citywide and our campaign for grade level reading schools. So our schools that are a part of our plan are in neighborhoods that have high levels of poverty, high levels of crime, gang activity, drugs, and single parent households, excuse me. And so the disparities that occur are very predominant within those schools. And we depend heavily on the communication of our school divisions to share with us additional challenges and barriers that their students are facing within those schools, so that we have the ability to address those. So it's constant communication throughout the year, so that we are able to add in additional supports should it be needed. Next slide. So in the spring of 2022, we started to see some improvements in the data by the end of our second year. So both the EYE and grade 3 reading results actually exceeded pre-pandemic levels for our priority schools. So we had 46% of students by the end of the second year deemed ready for school, and 52% were reading at grade level. And both of those percentages, as I mentioned, do exceed our pre-pandemic levels. Next slide. So in the spring of 2023 was our third and final year of our initial plan. The EYE data for our 12 campaign for grade level reading schools surpasses all previous results and exceeds the fall pre-COVID and 2022 citywide percentages. In the spring of 2023, the citywide grade level reading levels showed 71% of students were reading at grade level, and our campaign for grade level reading schools reported 55% of students were achieving their grade level benchmark. This provided an improvement of over 111% over the 3-year span, resulting in just a 16% gap, where it was significantly larger, above 30% when we started this work. Next slide, please. Another really important area for us to focus on as part of our school readiness commitment was to address health-related barriers to learning. And this has really required strong partnerships, again, with many different community partners. Our schools definitely, because we were asking to be able to remove students for part of a school day for some of the health-related barriers to learning, to address those. And it also required that we built strong partnerships with healthcare providers here in our city. So we wanted to prioritize healthy development in early childhood and help prepare children for their educational experiences in kindergarten and beyond. And so what we wanted to do was really stress the importance of prevention rather than intervention. So we wanted to be catching kids as they were entering the school system. And where we launched this focus area was really during our summer success camps, and we had run kinder camps as well. So kinder camps had children who were just about to emerge into kindergarten, identified through the EYE data as not being deemed ready for school. Our summer success camps and kinder camps provided a very intense learning environment. Our ratio of students to teacher is 5:1. So our camps provide programming for 15 students to 3 teachers. And we offer 10 days of strong literacy focus. So during our camps was actually where we had introduced vision exams. We had partners come right out to the schools where we were hosting our camps, and they did eye exams directly on site for our camp attendees. In addition to building those partnerships with those healthcare providers, United Way Regina has also developed an intervention budget so that should a child's family not be able to provide the recommended intervention, then United Way Regina would actually ensure that those costs were covered so that the child receive the care that they needed. This year, United Way Regina has actually expanded, and rather than having our vision partners come to camps, we have coordinated to have our schools visit our vision partner offices. And so we worked with our school divisions to create a rotating schedule that is consistent throughout this school year. And every 2 weeks, we have our schools visit our vision partners right in their offices to work towards the goal of having all kindergarten and grade 3 students who are eligible for an eye exam completed this school year. And so rather than just having 15 students per camp, we now are focused on the full enrollment of 1,674 students this school year. Next slide, please. So we started with vision, given that 80% of a child's learning is done through sight. And as part of that, we had the opportunity to focus on one particular student. This slide shows an example of a grade 3 student's work. And I was contacted by one of our school division superintendents, and she shared the challenges that this particular child had been struggling with since she entered into the school system at kindergarten. Teachers had been doing their best to try and navigate the needs without really knowing what those challenges were. In the summer of 2022, this student was assessed at one of our literacy camps, and the results showed that this young student was suffering from multiple vision impairments and required extensive vision therapy, as well as occupational therapy for mobility challenges. As you can see on the left side of the slide, there is very little in her work that was comprehensible. In October of 2022, United Way Regina offered to cover 100% of her vision therapy and occupational therapy sessions. And by March of 2023, we were able to see significant progress in her work. This student, now in grade 4, has moved schools and is no longer attending one of our Campaign for Grade Level Reading schools. However, thanks to our partnership with the school division, we were able to locate this student, and we have renewed our commitment to providing further funding to ensure this student continues to progress. Next slide. So in addition to the vision, we were also interested in helping to address gaps in services or supports. So I was again contacted and approached by one of our school divisions and asked to consider providing high AAC devices for students in our Catholic schools that required these devices in order to effectively communicate. What we learned thanks to our school partners is that these students who had varying abilities and identified diagnosis needed alternative augmentative communication, or AAC, in order to receptively understand other communications and, more importantly, to expressly communicate to others. Currently, Regina Catholic School Division does not provide AAC technology devices unless there is a documented medical restriction. However, the barrier is that many diagnoses that result in limited to no ability to communicate verbally are not directly connected to a physical condition that would be identified as a medical restriction. In our community, funding for individuals with intellectual disabilities will not fund devices. Many of the families from our community schools who have a child that requires a high AAC device also struggle with the finances needed to access these devices or outside therapies and services, and many families also struggle with navigating the systems. Acknowledging that without these devices, these students were unable to learn and communicate effectively, and thus creating a barrier to learning, United Way Regina is proud to have been able to provide $25,000 in funding for the purchase of high AAC devices for students. We believe the use of these devices will create increased opportunities for these students to interact and communicate with family, teachers, peers, and their community, which will ultimately help provide these children with a greater sense of belonging. These devices will also help to provide these students with independence, increase in class participation, and a decrease in frustration for learning for these students. AAC devices will complement and support the development of oral language and supports the receptive learning of literacy skills. Once these devices had been distributed, we were able to hear back from our Regina Catholic School Division, who shared that as a result of United Way Regina's support, the Executive Council for their school division had agreed that moving forward, they would support the purchase of high AAC devices moving forward. So this kind of gives a snapshot in terms of the work that we were able to do in the area of health-related barriers, thanks to our school divisions and communication partnerships. We're able to identify the needs of these students so we could continue to address those. One story in particular that stood out for us here over the last 3 years is that I was contacted regarding a family of 4 who unfortunately were living in horrible living conditions, and as a result, the grade 1 and grade 2 students who were a part of that household were no longer able to attend school based on how poor the conditions were at home. Obviously, a health-related barrier to learning, and United Way Regina is proud to have stepped in when other partners were not able to provide that support. And so it really just speaks to the importance of it takes a village approach, which is something that we live by with our partnerships in order to really address and hit the heart of the issues within our community schools. So in the fall of 2020, United Way Regina was chosen by the government of Saskatchewan through an application process to develop a family literacy hub. The Regina Region Family Literacy Hub provides a continuum of supports to families, starting right from birth, and is an extension of our school readiness initiatives. Understanding the immense value that parents provide as their child's first teacher, the Regina Region Family Literacy Hub aims to support families by providing tools, resources, and information that is needed to build confidence, which will lead to improved outcomes for children and their families. Sandy here is our Family Literacy Hub coordinator and will share some of the work that she is doing.
Okay, so the guiding actions of each family literacy hub that are throughout the province of Saskatchewan were laid out by the Provincial Literacy Office through our Ministry of Education. So in my role, I want to provide programming that will empower families to feel like they can support their children with engaging literacy experiences within the home. And so the partnerships that I have are so important because here in Regina, I'm kind of a lone wolf. So I'll speak to the partnerships that I have. The agencies that I work with are often agencies that support families that are living in poverty, young parent programs, and they can be referred through Kids First here or through different daycares and so on. Then also I have provided training and support to educators, teacher librarians, library staff on what are some very important literacy practices that can be shared with families to promote that awareness within their homes. Next slide, please. So here, the Literacy Hub in Regina. Right now, in our school divisions, I have been doing pre-K family days. So the pre-K teacher will invite the families and the kids in, and we will have a day that really is built around literacy activities and reading stories, and then taking those stories and having families engage in activities that would enhance that. Parent workshops that I've been working on have been through our YMCA Family Center. So families come in and we had different centers set up so that the families could see the power of doing puzzles together, or card games that you could introduce your young children to. The community outreach and networking is so important to establish those partnerships. So I have a very good relationship with our Regina Public Libraries, working with the different branches throughout our city. As Trish mentioned, our relationship with our school divisions is very important. So not only have we done some pre-K family days, but within our schools, we've also provided family literacy events in the evenings for children of all ages to attend with their families and enjoy family literacy activities that really support all the things that we want families to then transfer and do within their homes. Then working with daycares. In Regina, we have some very established community centers that are working in neighborhoods where we would have more newcomer families to Regina, as well as our community schools that those community centers also support. So that's another great outreach that we've been working with. And our First Nations communities, we've been working with Standing Buffalo Reserve, which is just outside our city, as well as Piapot First Nation. In the area of public awareness, I try to work with museums, different festivals that we have within our city, just to bring that public awareness of family literacy and the power of story. So this was taken just this January when we celebrated National Family Literacy Week here in Canada. And I was with the Sunrise Library in Regina, and we hosted a story time. It was a party theme, so families were busy making banners. And we had probably 100 families out for that event, so it was very successful. Next slide, please. The Shirley Schneider Support Center is a program that runs out of one of our high schools in the city. And this program is for high school students who have a baby or are pregnant. And it's a support center that will help these young moms achieve their high school diploma. So I have been working once a month with the new moms that are attending the Shirley Schneider Support Center to achieve their high school education. And when we were talking about trust, this is a very relaxed program with the moms. We are getting to know each other. I've been taking books in to support them, having them take home board books and talk about the best practices with board books with their children. This week, we're going to do finger plays and rhymes with the young babies. So that has been a really important part of my work. And we just got this relationship established this year. Next slide, please. So just some of our achievements. Because of a partnership with Scholastic Books, we have been able to distribute over 3,000 books to families in our city. We've hosted family literacy nights, workshops for educators, and many of the ways that I've been sharing stories with families in our communities is through story walks at different events, whether it's at a festival in our city or a family literacy night in one of our schools. The story walks have become very popular in our city. And Trish and I are very proud of the fact that we will now have a permanent story walk in Regina in one of our inner city neighborhoods. And the location of our permanent story walk will be adjacent to a playground, a splash park, a community garden, a community association, and 4 of our community schools that we support. So that's going to be really exciting for our city, and just to have the funding from the United Way to help us achieve that goal. So just a few snapshots of some of the fun events that have taken place in our city and just the engagement of our families coming out to such events and then being able to take home items that will enhance literacy in their homes, as well as a collection of books to build their home libraries with.
Sandy just touched on the partnership with Scholastic Canada, and it is a strong partnership that has grown year over year for us as well. So this year, we will receive a donation of 25,000 books, which will be deployed out through our campaign for grade level reading schools and our family literacy hub. As well, it will also provide books in our kinder readiness kits that we deploy to registered incoming kindergarten students, and provides books for all of our campers to take home and build at-home libraries. In addition to all of that work here within the city, we have also committed to beginning to build partnerships and relationships with 10 of our surrounding First Nation communities. Our community schools here in the city have high populations of Indigenous students as well as newcomer families. And we acknowledge that there is a significant amount of transiency that occurs for many of our families who currently reside in urban center and then may venture back to reserve and vice versa. So for us, it really hit home that we needed to ensure that we were providing that continuum of supports on an ongoing basis and trying to really address the needs that occurred for these families. And so we have begun to expand some of our campaign for grade level reading work into those communities. We are very excited to have just introduced 2 Inchy the Bookworm book bending machines onto Piapot First Nation Reserve. One of those machines is filled with an assortment of authors, and the second is specifically dedicated to Indigenous authors. And so our Inchy the Bookworm book bending machines help us address a few areas within our campaign for grade level reading framework. We utilize this to help drive reading outcomes as well as attendance outcomes. Students earn a golden token through things like improvement in attendance, improvement in reading levels, improvement in reading goals, as well as showing kindness and leadership within the school. And then they are able to select a book of their choosing, and then that book becomes theirs to keep and to take home. So it also helps us to address that need in terms of improving access to books. And I think that's it. That probably covers the majority of the overview. I know that I did provide a report that just kind of is a comprehensive 3-year overview of the work that we have been doing. And we are now in the development of phase 2 for what our campaign for grade level reading work will look like moving forward.
Sandy and Trish, I just want to say thank you so much. There was so much information, and for the Down East partnership team, thank you for all of that information. All of the resources that were shared by each of our speakers are so robust. And so what I want to note for everybody who is still hung on with us is that we will hold on to the Padlet questions. The next Crucible of Practice community session will actually be about family engagement and relationship building as well. And so we will hold those questions, and hopefully you'll be able to join us again in March where we will revisit those questions. I'm just noting the time that we have. We do want to pay respect to everybody that shared today. So thank you to both of your teams for so much information that you shared out through our network. You're just really shining stars within the Campaign for Grade Level Reading Network. We do have one more slide that I would like to pop up, which is the sharing of our upcoming sessions that will be coming up. There's one this afternoon around the science of reading, and then we have some others that are also scheduled for later this month. So please do join us in March for the follow-up piece around family engagement and that relationship component, which is so important. I think both of these communities really demonstrate the power of relationships and what can happen, particularly with all of that data that was shared by both teams and the impact that's happening as a result of those relationships. So thank you so much. I hope everybody has a great rest of your day. Thank you for joining today.